Okay, welcome to our first live online meeting for the Foundations of Statistics course using R. Professor Sosulski. I'm one of your professors for this course, and it's really great to see a large group of you joining us today online. So I see about 26 people are online right now. So today we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to do a little practice in R, and we're going to make sure that we know how to work in this environment to study and practice the skills that we learned in the asynchronous lessons, those lessons that you went through at NYU classes, and be able to apply some of those skills live during these live online meetings. So right now, I have my camera on, but I'm going to turn it off for now, just because it might be distracting. You really just need to hear me, and we're going to go through a few slides, and then I want to hear from you. So I'm just going to go to the next slide. So we already went through this earlier before I recorded the session. I want to make sure everybody can hear me, but we're going to use the text chat to communicate, and also your microphones. But right now I've muted your microphone, and the reason why is sometimes people come in late, and sometimes you hear dogs barking in the background, and sometimes you hear sirens. And so it's good if when you join the session, that you just make a habit of actually muting yourself. I have the power to mute all of you, so that's what's happening now. But if I unmute you, we might slowly begin to hear some background noise. Okay, so especially those folks on the phone, you might hear some background noise. So I'll give you the power to mute yourself, and if I hear a lot of background noise, I'll take the liberty to mute you. Why do I spend so much time talking about muting you or allowing you to kind of like control your own presence in this space? Is because I want to create a space where we can learn and freely talk to one another. And so giving you the power to mute yourself rather than me controlling that is much better, I think, for learning. At any point, if you have questions at all about any content, you can always ask them using the text chat first, and then I'll call on you and allow you to kind of share verbally what your question is or your comment. Okay. So you're saying now you're seeing the presenter display. I see what you're saying. Thank you for that feedback. So maybe what I can do is, can I swap displays? How's that? Okay. Thank you, Patrick, for sending that to me. So next, we talked already about the text chat. So I've got your feedback on that already. Just going to the next slide. Like I mentioned, at any point, if there are questions, just send them to me in the text chat, and I'll look at that periodically. I'm pretty good at doing a few things at the same time, so I can usually monitor the text chat while teaching or trying to do some coding in R. You just want to check, a few things. If you decide to use your camera, which you're welcome to, just make sure that you're comfortable with how your image looks. Like right now, I'm going to turn off my camera because I'm probably looking down a lot and not necessarily speaking to it. So, but I just wanted you to kind of put a face with a name. So I'm going to turn off mine right now. But you're welcome, when you speak, to use your camera if you like. We'd like to see you. It'd be nice to put a face with a name as well. So moving on about enabling your webcam, just knowing how to use the GoToTraining interface, right? So you have this turnbuckle here that says webcam. You'll be able to, share your webcam. And there's also other areas within your GoToMeeting console that you'll be able to chat, or the materials for today. They're actually under materials, so you can download those, and you can also see some other information there. So let's move on. If you're going to speak during the session, I really encourage you to. We'll go around the room and do maybe some just like really, really brief introductions just to hear from one another. I find it really important, but make sure that you, if you mute yourself, and then when I call on you, that you unmute yourself and you can simply then just speak. So hopefully you've had a chance to test your audio and all of that. But if not, then we'll use part of the session to do that today. But for the next time, just please remember to kind of have all that stuff ready. So I just wanted to do a brief introduction. I'm not going to talk too much about myself. I know you read my bio and everything, but just so you know a little bit about me. So I started actually at Stern as an undergraduate. So I studied information systems here and also management and organizational behavior. So I had two majors. And it was during the .com era. So that kind of dates me a little bit, but just so you have a sense of when the point at which I began, studying technology, becoming interested in technology, was really that 1.0, Web 1.0 era. And it's been really interesting to see that area really grow and transform and basically be a professor and a student during those times. After I finished Stern, I actually went on to do my doctorate at Columbia University in an area that merges kind of my two passions. So one is technology and information technology, information systems, and education together. And so I went on to study that, but also I'm a doer. So I like to build things and make things. And so I built systems and platforms and oversaw them. And they were educational technology projects, which we know is kind of like all the rage now with all these new online courses and online course platforms. But in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was still a pretty new thing to think about digital learning spaces that could be interactive and not just kind of communicate information. So pages of HTML text would still be boring in the late 1990s. We were creating environments at Columbia that were immersive, interactive, allowed for communication and collaboration, even beyond what we see even today in NYU classes. But these things were kind of handmade, so there weren't these massive systems available at the time to create these immersive environments. Things are getting better in this space, but it's still an interesting space for things like learning analytics. So how do we actually measure learning in digital spaces? Are we getting enough information about what students are doing in these spaces? Can we make any predictions about how they might be successful in their studies based on kind of what they do in these digital spaces? And a lot of it comes down to actually how you design the pedagogy or the education more than how you design the technology. Because the technology will help us track and collect data on anything we want pretty much, but the things that we see today still are pretty boring. So I know if you've clicked on the lessons tool in NYU classes, or I know if you've, watched a video, but I don't really know if person X watched the video. I get a page view. And so there's more and more things that are available today to kind of be more thoughtful about the analytics around learning. So that's one area I'm really passionate about. And I came to NYU in the mid 2000s, 2005, and as a faculty member in digital communications. And I was also hired to run a program called NYU Online. And so I was responsible for one of their online efforts. There was it was like NYU Online Part 2. It was the first NYU Online. NYU spent a lot of money and failed at it. This time around, they got better at it. And so I led a few undergraduate degree programs and master's programs and even business programs that were online. And then I came back. I know that was at a different school than NYU. And then I came back to Stern to teach actually in the same department that I got my undergraduate degree in. So it's kind of been a real full circle for me. But my passion has always been in education and technology. And so whether education was teaching for me or actually using technology to enhance teaching, that's kind of my space right now. And throughout all of that, programming and building digital learning environments is something I've always done and analyzed data as part of my work. And teaching programming has been a passion for me, and it's actually something I did my master's thesis on, is how we can best teach, programming to, non-programmers or people that are new to, say, a specific language or don't necessarily come from your traditional background. And so I think that's why they asked me to teach this course, is because the point of this course is not to make everyone master R programmers. It's really to ensure that you feel really good and confident about programming in R, and then you can build on what you learn in this course with other courses. So the design of this course is not at all meant to be punitive. If I have to give everybody A's, then I give everybody A's. It's not about having a grade distribution that looks good, or it's much more about making sure that you're ready to move on in the program and you have the skills needed. So I hope that's encouraging. And for those of you that already have a lot of experience, or maybe even with R, you'll find the work that we're doing hopefully reinforcing, and hopefully you'll get something out of it as well. So I'm going to pause there. I just wanted to share just like a few other things as part of what I work on. I've worked with lots of different companies on lots of different projects, things that relating to operations or social media or data related. And these are just some examples. I bring a lot of companies and company data into the classroom, and I'm teaching a course in this program called Data Visualization, and we'll be actually working with some real data there from not one of these companies shown on the screen, but more as an example of another company. I'm sorry, it's from another company, but I didn't show it on the screen here because I'm still working with them. So I hope that's also exciting. I like to work with things that are real and authentic. And after we get through kind of learning the basics of R, you'll be able to start doing that as well. So at this point, we do have a big group, and I don't like to take too much time on introductions because honestly, you're going to introduce yourself probably another 40 times between now and the beginning of Module 1 when you come to New York or join us at NYU in person. But it's still great to have a sense of who's in the room, where you come from. So if we can make a deal that you do an introduction that's like 15 seconds or so, but I just love to hear all of your voices, and if you have a camera, show it. If not, it's okay. And just like tell us your name, like tell us where you're located and what you do. And if you can really keep it brief, that would be fantastic. And what I'll do is I have a list of everybody who's said they were attending. So I'm just going to go down my list and I'll call your name. And what I'd ask you to do is unmute yourself and then share your name, your location, and job title. And then I'll help facilitate and move on to the next person. So the first person that I have on my list is Lin Shen. So I don't know if you're here.
Hi, Professor, I'm here.
Hi.
So my name is Lin Shen. My location is in New York, and my job title is UBS Investment Bank Business Performance Associate.
Wow, well, welcome to the program, Lin. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor.
Okay, next I have Mark Parsons. Is Mark here? Okay, seems like Mark may not be here.
Oh, Mark's asking how to unmute.
Oh, okay, so I am getting a different last name for Mark. Okay, so you have to just like click on yourself by the microphone.
Okay. Well, this is not Mark Parsons. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mark.
Okay. All right. I'm not Mark Parsons, so I'm Mark Shirtman. If you want me to go next.
Sure, please.
Sure. Mark Shirtman. I am based out of Chicago. I work for Sarich Insurance, and I head up the digital analytics group.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, Mark. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, next I have Nande Puda. Okay, I don't see Nande, so I'm going to go back to Mark Parsons because actually I see a name Mark Parsons here. So, Mark, are you here? For some reason, it's not working. All right. Well, maybe you can tell us all in the text chat, Mark, where you're located and what your job title is. Oh, based in Switzerland. Wonderful. Well, nice to meet you, Ark. Thank you. And hopefully you can get your sound working. Go to the audio turnbuckle and try to get it working while we're doing our intros if you can. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Nande Puda. I don't know if you're here. I don't see you. Okay. Then I'm going to go to Arun Murali. I see you.
Hi everyone, this is Arun here from Hong Kong. I work with HSBC here in Hong Kong in the HR analytics space. Glad to be here.
Great, glad you're here, all the way from Hong Kong. Great. Next, I have Emmanuel.
Hello, this is Emmanuel Hippolyte. I am in Northern California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am the Business and Project Controls Manager for Pacific Gas and Electric.
Oh, wonderful. Well, nice to meet you, Emmanuel. Thank you. Okay, next I have Saif Perkar.
Hi everyone, this is Saif. I'm based in Bombay. I'm a sales manager in Cathay Pacific Airways, and it is so nice to see you all.
So nice to see you. Terrific. This is amazing. Hong Kong, Bombay, Switzerland, New York, California. It's really, truly a global program, right? It's great. And the technology pretty much works. So next I have, and if I pronounce your name wrong, I really apologize. I have a very hard name. My last name's Sosulski, very difficult for a lot of people. So I'm very sensitive to trying my best to pronounce names. So Amer is next. Gafar, Amer Gafar. I see you're on the line. We can't hear you. Well, Amir, maybe try to just tell us a little bit about you in the text chat, where you're located and what your job title is. And then you can work on your audio. Serial entrepreneur, very cool. And located in Chicago and New York. Okay, thanks so much for sharing. Wonderful. Try to work on that audio. Okay, next I have Libin Chen.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, thanks.
Thank you. Hi, guys. This is Li Chen. I'm based in New York. I'm the senior data architect manager in a investment firm.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hopefully the weather will warm up in New York. All right. Next, I have Chris Deal. So Chris, I don't know if you can hear or speak. If you're having problems, you can just let us know a little bit about you in the text chat. So Chris, I don't know if you can hear us. Chris Deal. Okay, we're going to come back to you. Oh, here you are. Okay, you're based in New York City and you work for AIG's corporate planning division. Wonderful. Wonderful. Nice to meet you, Chris. Try to get your audio working if you can. Okay, Brad OHara is next. Hi, Brad. Are you able to hear us? Maybe you can introduce yourself. If not, verbally, maybe in the text chat then.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey. My name is Brad OHara. in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm an equipment engineer for GlaxoSmithKline.
Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to the program. Welcome. Okay, next I have Nicholas Vasilius.
Yeah, Vasilius.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick. I work in Seattle, Washington, and I am the manager of portfolio risk and analysis, which is credit analytics. They just don't have a good name for it.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to meet you. Next we have Pala.
Hi, yes, I'm Paola from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I'm account executive in Google.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you. Thank you. Okay, on my list I have next is Donnie Shearman.
Morning, or I guess good evening.
Depends where you are.
No, it's evening where I am. It's just been a long day. I am in strategy and I work at the Boeing company, and I currently live in St. Louis.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, this is my third class I'm teaching today, so it's feeling like morning, but I'm located in New York. But however, I will say this is my favorite class to teach. Okay, next I have Marcus.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you.
Cool. So my name is Marcus. I'm based in Stockholm, in Sweden, and I work with business intelligence within capital markets at Nordea.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marcus. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
Next, I have Leandro.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Professor. I'm Leandro Pena, and I am based here in New York City, and I am the Digital Analytics Manager for Corporate Marketing at Penton.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, Mike Berger.
Hello, everybody. Professor, it's Mike Berger. I'm in New York City. I work at Mount Sinai Hospital on the Upper East Side, and I'm the head of population health analytics and data science. Happy to meet everybody.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. We do there are a lot of capstone projects in healthcare, so you would have been a handy person to know a few years ago. Wonderful. Okay, so Jeff Bevin.
Jeff Bevin. I'm located in Alberta, Canada, and I'm a manager of business analytics for a power company up here.
Wonderful. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks.
Next up, I have David Lucy.
So I'm based in the New York area, and I work at Alpine Data in business development.
Perfect. Great. Nice meeting you. Next is Craig Sarich.
Yeah, hi, this is Craig. I work for a wet wipe company in Orangeburg, New York, which is near the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I'm a senior analyst for the procurement group.
Nice to meet you, Craig. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, next I have Theophilus. Which I don't see him, so we'll move on. I have Jennifer Link.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jen, and I'm based in New York City also. I work at KPMG, and I am a consultant in their global mobility tax practice.
Welcome, Jennifer. Keith Jackson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Keith. Welcome.
Great to be here. Yes, hi, I'm Keith. I'm based in New York City. I'm a data analyst with the General Services Administration, which is a U.S. federal government agency.
And you said you're based in New York?
Yes, I live in the New York area.
Oh, great. All right, next I have Jesus Riviera.
Hi, Jesus Rivera. I'm from New York as well, and I'm a consultant in the provider management analytics space in a Anthem healthcare.
Can we try that one more time? You were a little bit muffled. I didn't hear what you did or what you do.
Sorry about that. I'm a consultant at a company called Anthem, which is the parent company of Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I work in the provider management analytics department as a consultant.
Oh, really interesting. Nice to meet you, Jesus.
Likewise. Thanks.
Next I have Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela. I live in New York City and I work for an architecture firm. I'm the director of project finance.
Oh, interesting. Nice to meet you, Angela. Welcome. Next is Timothy West.
Hey everyone, Tim West here. Live in New York City, and I'm the director of strategy for a fashion e-commerce company.
Wonderful. Nice to meet you, Tim. Thanks. Next, John Harris.
Hey everyone, I'm John Harris, though I go by my middle name Tyler, and I am the VP of Data Analytics at Manhattan Insurance Group, which is based in Houston, Texas.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, John. Or Tyler, sorry. Next, I have Rafael Gonzalez.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Professor. This is Rafael. I am based in Panama City, Panama, and I work as a supply chain manager for a local distributor of home appliances.
Nice to meet you, Rafael. I think I was supposed to meet you in person, wasn't I?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
So side note for the class, I teach a course in Panama over spring break called Operations in Panama, and I bring MBA students there. And Rafael was nice enough to contact me about meeting up and offering his assistance. And we both have schedules kind of didn't collide, but we're very excited about Rafael being in the program. I am in particular because of my interest in Panama. If you haven't been to Panama, you definitely need to go. It's an amazing country.
Thanks. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Okay, sorry, side note. Okay, only a few more intros. So AJ, are you here? I don't see AJ. One more, Patrick Smith. I see you.
Hi, I'm Patrick Smith. I live in Yakima, Washington, which is a small rural area about 150 miles east of Seattle. I'm a farmer here. We grow hops, apples, cherries. Yeah, here in Yakima, Washington. So nice to meet y'all.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I've been learning a lot more about hops. We just visited a brewery as part of my course in operations, and we studied the process of making beer. So the quality of the hops.
Nice, very fun.
They seem to be important.
Yes.
In that whole beer making process. Great. I mean, I just want to ask and see if there's anybody I missed that maybe you signed up later. You signed up like after 5:30. I probably don't have you on my printout. So, okay, if you do, just let me know in the text chat. While I'm just want to do a summary. I mean, I'm humbled to be in your presence, to be honest. I mean, the diversity of positions that you hold and the level of these positions is amazing. Where you're all from is, like I said, really represents what we're trying to do here with the program, having this, global program, not only global in the sense that we have modules in different locations in, in New York City and London and Shanghai, but also that students are from all around the world and that are, top executives at, top companies or have their own companies or just doing something that's really interesting and applying analytics and business analytics to their practice, trying to refine what they already know or, learn something completely new. It's very admirable. And I know you're going to love this program. This is I think we started this program in 2012 or 13. And so I've been teaching ever since it has started. And this course in particular was not offered to the first group of students. And we decided that it was really necessary to have a real foundational course. And we put it in module 1. And I was able to work with the program director and the deans and to even have these online live sessions that my conviction is that these things are really useful in the beginning for all of us to get to know each other, but then for practice. And I hope that you find that too. They're not available in every course and for good reason, but this is because you'd probably be overwhelmed, quite frankly, if you're not already. But this is kind of my assurance, over you're handing in assignments and other things for the R portion of this course. But by actually you coming to these sessions, my assurance that, that you're really learning this stuff. And it gives you that opportunity to ask questions as well, in a simple way, not over email. I mean, those methods are great, and we should do that in this digital age. But also, just like to talk to your professor and ask a question. So I kind of want to break down the walls a little bit, so you feel comfortable contacting me. If you want to give me a phone call, that's great. We don't have to do everything digitally. Or by text. Sometimes it's helpful to walk through and talk through some of these problems that we face as we learn something new, whatever that may be. So my agenda for today is on the screen here. And basically, a lot of things I just said, I want to make sure that you're learning R at a basic level. Basic, I'm considering lessons 1 and 2. Okay, that's what this session covers. You're going to be attending the session 2 and session 3, and those will cover the remaining lessons. It's going to be basic today. The class will be recorded, so you can go back to it as well. And I want to give you some opportunity to practice in real time. So we'll work together on problems. I'm going to ask you to use the text chat to share your answers to problems. We do that for a few reasons. One is I want to see if you're working or if you're doing email. But really, I want to see if you're working and see how you're thinking about solving problems, even if it's a simple math problem that I'm going to ask you to solve. And as you share your work in the text chat, it'll be like 1 or 2 lines of code, you'll see other people share their work and how they solve the problem. And it might be different than your solution. And that might be okay, because you'll come up, generally with the same answer, but have different approaches to tackling how you solve the problem. And that's another way that you learn, so that there's not just one way to do things when you program. Okay, so I want you to see that. And I would encourage, I'm going to watch the text chat very closely, but I'm going to encourage you, if you see questions from your peers in the class, that you try to, and you have the answer, just answer them. This is, again, I'm trying to cultivate a community of learners. And so this is not competitive. This is really meant to, help each other in this process of learning. So we're going to do something right now, which in the text chat, I put a link, and this link is to the survey that's listed on the screen. I'd like you to just go through, click on this link that's in the text chat, and answer the questions. It's very, very simple. And then we're going to go over it. So I'm just going to wait until about 25 of you or so put your answers in the survey, and I'll be monitoring that, and then we'll go from there. So it's 7:06. I'm going to check back at 7:08. Thank you, Mark. I got your note. I understand. You could do it later if you don't mind. Okay, it's 7:08. So if you're in the midst of responding, that's cool. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share the responses with everybody on the screen, and the aggregation of the responses, not your individual ones. And I like to show this for several reasons, but let's look at the question 1. So which sessions have you completed in the R portion of this course? So you can see that most people, looks like, I think we have about 28 people here. I have a fake student in the class. It's actually me, so I can look at this class on my cell phone and see how it appears to you. And it's called Student. But it looks like 24 of you, 96% have gone through session 1, 76% on session 2, and then less on the other sessions. That's normal. That makes sense. So you can see where you fare compared to your classmates. Which exercises have you completed? So it looks like, a majority of the class has done session 1, and like, close to 70% have done session 2. So good. And this is one of my favorite diagrams. I'm not a big pie chart fan, but this is what Google gives you. So let's look. 8 people said this is your first introduction to R. So 32% of you, okay? So if you're like, oh no, am I the only one that doesn't know this? No, this is completely in line with the distributions of the other classes. So about, a third or so are really new to R. And then we have somewhat familiar but never used it, another 10 people. So 18, a large majority of the class, about 70% of the class have never used R. And that's, again, I like to share that with everybody so you see where you kind of are relative to your peers. Some people have used it a few times. Awesome. 6 of you. And 1 person's a frequent user. Okay. And nobody could teach this course. In the last session I offered a few days ago, there was 1 person that said they could teach this course. In all my years teaching this, I've never had anybody but the other day actually say that they're an expert user. So it's interesting for me, for sure. But this is really in line with the proportions of the class. Lynn is wondering who. That's a great question. That would be like your little scavenger hunt when you arrive. Okay, so what questions do you have about learning R? I like to share these with you as well. So how to practically apply to a capstone course. Well, that's not going to be an answer I can give in, 3 to 5 or 20 minutes. Basically, I can give a general answer to that first question, whoever asked it. You may be doing a project that requires you to use several data mining models, and those data mining models can be done using special packages in R. Okay, that's one way that you might be able to use it for your capstone course. Another way is that you might be developing an app for your capstone course, and you might develop that app in a package called Shiny, which is an interface for developing web-based applications. So you might use Shiny, which is a package of R, to develop a web-based app for your capstone. So I advise capstone. So if you're looking for an advisor, definitely talk to me as well. Usually professors can advise like a couple. So I usually advise like 1 or 2 capstones in each class. And I advised one group that was doing a marathon prediction app. And they used Shiny to create a marathon prediction app. So the idea was like, okay, you're thinking about like running a marathon, you need a trainer. However, your trainers are really expensive, and all those online trainers are kind of like don't really do the job. So they kind of found the middle ground with their app, and they used Shiny to create it. So that's just an example. So I hope I answered the first question. Second question, no, none at the moment. Third, like to hear more about factors. Okay, so factors are great for categorical data. And when you think about like a Likert scale, right? So, to what degree are you satisfied with your experience using go-to training, right? Let's pretend that's a question that we're asking a group of participants. And the possible responses could be that I'm extremely satisfied, I'm satisfied, I'm neither satisfied or dissatisfied, I'm somewhat dissatisfied, or extremely dissatisfied. right? So you might have like 7 points on a Likert scale. And so those points may correspond to numbers 1 through 7, or you can do a -3 to a +3, for example, with the middle being a 0. There's different ways to code a Likert scale, but you have numbers associated with qualitative values, like extremely satisfied versus extremely dissatisfied. So factors allow you to combine categorical data with numeric data. So assign a number to a category. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so sometimes we just have variables that are like agree, disagree, but we have no value associated with them. When we want to associate a value with a categorical variable, that's where it becomes important. And I'm just like checking the text chat right now. What's the difference between as factor and factor? Okay, so as factor is a way that you can cast a variable as a factor, but the variable doesn't change in itself. If you use factor is a way that you can actually convert one data type to another, quite simply. But you can use both and just do variable reassignment to make that, to convert one data type to another. So another question somebody had is, I started the Coursera course, but you struggled with the homework. What's a big jump from the lessons in practice? How do I fill in this gap? Well, I don't know. So you're in this program and you're doing another R class. So it's going to be, I haven't evaluated that, but I would say, we're starting at different points here. I'm starting with the fact that I know basically 70% of the people have never used R before. And so this class is designed for you to be successful and confident every step of the way and not struggle too much to get through the lessons, because we have a whole time in class to work on things that are going to be much more challenging. And you have other classes in this program that are going to build on your foundational knowledge. So I want to make sure you have the foundational knowledge rather than just getting through a bunch of content. Okay. And sometimes in these classes, and I'm not judging it, I have no idea. I've written 2 books on online learning, so I am a big proponent of it, and I would commend anybody that's doing extra. But I can't really answer your question without really knowing what they're doing. Okay. So next, how deep will we go in order to get R working for ourselves? I don't know that question. The answer to that question, because I don't know. Whoever wrote that can contact me directly. I'd like to answer it, but I don't know how to answer the question. R you should be programming and working in R right now. So I don't know what you mean by how deep. Okay, John has a comment in the text chat. I had a very similar experience. Data Camp is much more intuitive and practically oriented. Okay, thanks, John. That's great. Okay, and then finally, what benefit of R from business perspective? Why is it important to know if you're not programming? Well, I would encourage everyone to try to answer this question for yourself. And I think knowing how to program, not just how to, program theoretically, but how to think like a programmer is extremely important when communicating with other people that are going to be doing some of that work for you. Understanding some of the challenges that we face when working with different types of data and gaining insights from that data, understanding that the models that are possible in order to manipulate that data. Those models are basically packages that we use in R or Python or another programming language. And so if we're going to interrogate our data at all, it's not just about writing a program that calculates the mean and standard deviation. It's about, using a program to perhaps put together a predictive model that might predict, figure out what our target variable is and what can be explained by our predictive model, or perhaps interrogating data and seeing where patterns or clusters arise in the data. So I think it's really a no-brainer for why one would want to not want to learn how to program, even if it's not something that you're using. There's a difference between learning R as a tool. If you want to learn R as a tool and be like a super R programmer, you should probably take those online classes, those Coursera classes, and maybe enroll in a be one of those people that's writing your own packages in R and dedicate your time to just doing that. But if you're trying to get a more well-rounded business education in business analytics, there's definitely something to be said by understanding the tools that are available and how to gain some proficiency in those tools, and then how to lead data science teams of people that are really focused on using those, and being able to lead, not just have the programming aspect be kind of a black box. And so that's why I think it's so important. And I think Mark and a few other people have commented, and it's such an important question. I'd just love to even have like a whole class on this. But whoever brought that up, that was a really great question. So it's 7:19, so we have quite a bit of time, and so we're going to get to work now. I'm going to bring back my slide deck, and I want to just thank everybody for your honesty and sharing those questions. And the next thing that we're going to do is give you an opportunity to practice in real time. Okay, we've done the first part, so to some extent, right? Because I've asked you, where you are in your own learning of R, your background, those types of things. And I have your assignments that you've turned in to prove it, and also your answers to the survey. But now I want to see kind of us working in real time. So if you didn't know this already, but the materials for all the online sessions are in NYU classes under lessons, and materials for online sessions 1 through 3. Same for Peter's class, okay? There's also an area in your go to training control panel here that you can see the materials that we'll be using today, okay? So you can always download those. A few things. You're kind of learning and working in a digital environment here, right? So we're in go to training. You're gonna have to have RStudio open. You're gonna have to have the assignment that we're working on together open. And then you're going to have one more thing. Bring it up. This go to training kind of control panel here, right? So you can write your answers in text chat. So try to arrange your screen appropriately. It's best in the future as we go on, because we'll be going a lot faster in sessions 2 and 3, that you have a printout of the exercises, just so then you can have more real estate on your screen. Hope that makes sense. I'm gonna, at the end of this, you'll have the access to all the solutions and everything, but if you want, I use RPubs to publish everything. And one of the lessons, I believe it's like 2 or 3, I have a section how you can learn how to publish to RPubs too. Okay, so a few things before we jump right into doing the problems that I have for today. I have I have session 1 and session 2 problems for us to work on today. We never get through all of them, and that's on purpose, because I want to give you something that, I'm hoping in my dream world that, after the session is over at 8 o'clock, you'll continue working on the last couple problems because you'll be so inspired and motivated. So I like to give you a little something extra to do. Okay, so a few things. Command line interface. So this is the basic that you went through in the first session. So we have our console window, okay, and this is where you type most of your commands in the console window. Once you get to lesson 3, you're going to be using this window here, okay? This is called the scripting window, okay? This is where you write scripts. You write all your code in advance, and then you can execute it. When we work just in the console, we kind of type and execute our code at the same time. And that's not great, because if you made a mistake, then you have to kind of go back and you don't know what you've done in the past unless you look at your history. So we plan out our programs. So let's just talk a little bit about input and output. So anytime I use the greater than sign, I'm using it in the context that this is the command prompt. So our input, we have 3 plus 2, and our output is 5. That should be pretty straightforward. You're dividing 100 by 5, our output is 20. Okay, so this is where we're using R as a calculator. Very, very simple. But as you have R open now, and if you haven't done it in a week or something like that, try using it as a calculator. Try typing in some of these simple problems. When we do use R as a calculator, we have like arithmetic operators, obviously. So we can use addition, subtraction, division, all these things. And so these are our operators. These should be, no big surprise to anyone. Modulus is something that people are not as familiar with, but it's just simply the remainder from integer division, right? So if I'm dividing 5 by 4, the modulus would be what? It would be 1, okay? So variables and assignment. Again, as I'm going through this, any questions, please ask. Okay, Mike asked, what was the name of the window we should be using rather than the console? Okay, so I'm just going to go back a few slides just so I can just show you what I mean. It's called like the R script window. So up here, okay? So you have a window for coding, right, in the console. And then we have this window up here. And this is where you'll be able to say File, New R script, and it would appear here. This window here, this is where we have all of our variables that we've either declared or data that we've imported. And here is usually where we put where our visualizations show up. Okay? So I hope that's clear, Mike. All right. So a couple things about variables and assignment. Okay, so this statement is saying that we're assigning the value of 3 to x. Okay? We're not saying x equals 3. Okay, but we're saying that we're assigning the value of 3 to x. And I'm being very explicit about how I describe what it is that we're doing. Part of, if you're new to programming at all, or new to R, like it's learning the way that we describe what we're doing in kind of the language of a programmer. And programming has a syntax, which is actually what's written on the screen, but then it also has a language, okay? And that's the language that I use when I describe, okay, we're assigning the value of 3 to x. Okay, then this is our name of this is a variable, x is a variable, okay? This is called the assignment operator, and this is our value that we're storing, okay, or referencing. This is also assignment, so I'm assigning the value of 3 to x. Different type of assignment operator here. It's the equals. If you've programmed in Python or pretty much any programming language, assignment is usually denoted by the equal sign. However, in R, we also have this assignment operator. I like to introduce this to you because any documentation that you're going to find on R, which is an open source programming language that has a huge community around it, will use this as the assignment operator. Okay, so I want you to be able to, and I encourage you to use that as well. I go back and forth because I program in a lot of other languages, and the equal sign is just easier for me to type, to be honest. So as I'm going through this, I want you to try a few things. Even if it seems mundane, I just want you to get comfortable. So assign the value of 42 to the variable name y. You can just go ahead and do that in RStudio. And then access that value. So how would I access the value 42? You could type it in the text chat. Yeah, Patrick's right. You just y, okay? So referencing a variable, we just type the variable at the console, and then we get the value that it's assigned to. Great. You can do further examples here. So now we have y, and y is a variable, so we can do things with the variable. We can change it, right? So I can add 2 to y, right? Y plus 2. What's the value of y now? I've just added 2 to it. If I typed in y, what would I get? Some people said 42, some people said 44. Why isn't it 44? Somebody type in y. They think it's not 44. Yes, I didn't assign it. I just added 2 to y. It's almost like saying 42 plus 42 plus 2 is 44, but 42 didn't change. And this is the same case, right? So y hasn't changed. I need to update y. And right, so how I do that, y is assigned to 42, and then I can update y. In this case, I'm subtracting 1 from y. So this is saying 42 minus 1, and then I assign that to y, and then I can print out y. Okay? So nice work. Okay, so then here's another quick exercise. Assign the value of 42 to the variable y, and then assign that value to x. So just read that before kind of doing it. And once you've done it, you can type your answer in the text chat. Okay, good. Something like that is what I was looking for. Good. So being comfortable with assignment is really important. Using variables when you can is going to be really important in programming. It's much better to use variables than to like hard coder values. Okay, we want to be able to change and manipulate our variables and be able to reference them in the future. So a few things about variables, which are basically ways for us to reference our data. And our data can have many different characteristics. One of the characteristics has to do with the data type. So we hear somebody on the line. Just mute yourself. I don't know. There's a little bit of background noise. Just make sure everybody's muted. Okay, I'm just going to check in one more time. I hear a little bit of background noise. I just don't want to disrupt anybody. All right, I'm going to mute everybody, just in case. So, like I was saying, our variables can be of many different types. Like, for instance, if we have a column of data, and that column of data might be numbers. And if all those numbers are positive whole numbers or negative whole numbers, then that would be an integer. Okay, and if there are decimal points, then we consider that a float. And if we had a vector, meaning that we had a column, right, and we would have an integer vector. Okay, it was just one number, like 42. It would just be an integer. If we have a series of numbers or an array of numbers, that would be a vector. Okay, most things when you import your data into R, it's not going to be as descriptive of what kind of data it is. It'll probably either be a numeric or one of these. It might be a character, so if it's text, anything with double quotes around it. It might be a logical or Boolean, so where the values of that variable are only true or false, right? So that's where we use logical operators, and we test for truth. They're very important, foundational in programming. Or we might even have something that might be a character vector. And you can think of a vector, again, as like a column in Excel, okay? And if we want to think about like a single character, we would think about a single cell in Excel that had some text, like hello world. And I mean, what the important things to know is that we really can't do math on non-numeric variables. So there's many times that we have to check to see what type of variable we have. And there's a lot of functions or methods that don't work on certain types of data types. For instance, can I take the mean of hello world? No. Mean is a function that calculates the average, and it only works on numeric data. And so you'll say, well, that's pretty logical, Kristen. And it is very logical. But however, there are many, many packages in R, and every package contains a series of functions, and those functions only operate on certain types of data. And so if the function is something like, LP, you might not know what that means, okay? You might not know what kind of data is required of that function LP. So this is where understanding data types is going to be super important. So you know what kind of data to pass into that function. Okay, so let's look at a quick example. So here's some code. So we use a function called class. Class will tell me what data type every variable is that I pass in. So I say class X, it returns as a numeric. So it's a numeric data type. If I have a variable called Z that's assigned a value of 1.2, and I run the class function, I pass in Z, it returns numeric, okay? Even though this is an integer, I'm sorry, even though this is a floating point number, it just still tells me it's numeric, okay? So again, that's a general way that R classifies the variables, unless you explicitly decide that you want to make it an integer or something else. If I have a variable called B and I assign it to this string book with these double quotes around it, and I want to find out what kind of data it is, I say class, pass in B, and I see it's a character. So that should be pretty straightforward. I talked a little bit about vectors. They're essential data structure in R. In all the documentation, you will see an example that starts with them creating a vector of numbers. And the reason why is because they want some data to operate on to show you how to, use a function to solve a problem or something. So this C function means combined, and it means basically combine all these numbers into a vector, okay? Or you can think of like a column in Excel, and assign that to X. So X represents, in this case, 6 numbers, okay? And then so now I can do anything I want with X that's possible with a numeric vector. I can add 2 to it. So adding 2 to X actually adds 2 to each one of the 6 values. And you can see what that returns. I'm just going to check the chat, see if there's any. Good, okay. So why don't you go ahead and try. Create a vector called months with the integers 1 through 12 and square that vector. This is only like 2 lines of code. Once you do that, share it in the text chat. Great. So I see Lynn. This is great. Lynn and Keith, that you did 2 different approaches to solve the same problem. I love it. Simple stuff, right? So here's my answer. We have 2 ways that we could either, there's more than 2 ways, but we could either, create our vector 1 through 12 here, or I can actually use the range. 1:12 says that create a vector with the numbers 1 through 12 inclusive of the number 1 and the number 12. Okay, and then I could just square that vector. Let's try another one. Create a vector called days with the days Monday through Wednesday. You knew how to do the first one. You probably know how to do the second one, but I want to make sure you're using your double quotes here. Okay, just a few last points before we jump into the exercises. Functions. I've been talking about them for the last 20 minutes or so. We've been using functions. The class is a function. C is a function, right? But just want you to pay attention to the 2 last points. They operate on some specific set of arguments. Whatever you pass in between those parens in a function is what's being operated on. And you're usually going to get something that's going to be returned, like a value or a number, okay, or string or something like that. So for instance, here are some functions that are built into R. You don't have to think where these functions live, like what package they're a part of, nothing like that. But here's the square root function. where we pass in, make sure we pass in a numeric and we get a result from that, mean, okay? So I can even do functions within functions. I can first create a vector of numbers 1 through 5, and then pass that vector in another set of parens. You gotta make sure your parens match up, very important, and get the mean of that vector. So I'm doing 2 things at once. I very rarely do that when I'm teaching. Of course, when I'm coding, you do things that are very efficient. But when I'm teaching, I like to first create the vector, then take the mean of it, just to be explicit about what we're doing. You're going to start developing your own style. ToUpper. So this is a function that converts a character string to uppercase. That should be pretty self-explanatory. If I tried to pass in a number here, I would probably get an error because ToUpper doesn't work on a number. Okay, so we are going to start with practice exercise 1 and see how far we get, and maybe we'll even start practice exercise 2, which is really an intro to lesson 3 online, okay? So let's make sure you have your handout from the material section, and we're going to start with the first exercise. And how we're going to work is I'm going to ask you to start by completing the first question and then post your answer in the text chat. And then I'm going to demonstrate how to solve the problem or ask you. And we're going to continue like this for each question. Okay? And if we get through this, then we can start on exercise 2, which is about importing data into R. If you haven't done that yet, we'll go through how to do that. There's some tricky things. So I'm going to just change my screen to my beautiful RStudio environment so you can see it. It looks something like this. So you should be able to, I'm just checking on you should be able to see this pretty well. And I'm going to just move a few things around so it's a little bit more readable for you. So go ahead and get yourself situated. And if you can see what's on my screen, that's great. I hope you can. I'm going to view, I'm going to zoom in just so it's just a little bit bigger for you. And I'm going to be working down here in the lower left-hand corner. And you'll notice that my whole screen is taken up with a bunch of text because I was working on a program before we started. So, and I always like to keep my screen like this to show you kind of like where I am in mid-work. And so I want to get started and show you a clean screen. So I'm going to press Control-L, and that clears my console window, so you can see that. And I also have some, all my answers here to the first exercise that I have in a script. And if you don't know how to create scripts, that you will learn in session 3 online, okay? I just have this so you don't see me making typos. So let's start with the first problem. And again, please put your answer in the text chat. So if you can share your code with me for your solution for problem 1, which is just a mathematical calculation. Which is asking okay. So here's my problem, and here's my solution. Okay, it looks like Angela, Jennifer, Paula, Arun, Patrick. Everybody's on the ball. This is great. Even if you're like not at the same pace of everyone, that's fine. Please let me know if I'm going too fast with anything, if you have questions. You can even let me know privately in a text chat. Okay, this is great. All right, let's do the second question. What's the absolute value of negative 88? Good. You just didn't say 88, but you actually told me how to use the absolute value function. Good. All right, let's go on to the next question. 3. The base 10 log of 72. Good. You could always check the log function too, if you want. That's how you actually would do that. All right. So number 4. And while you're solving number 4, I'm just going to take a look at the text chat, make sure there are any questions. Okay, so 4 should also be pretty straightforward, especially if you've done. Good, we have 1.65. I see some people have that. You could even write your own if you wanted to without using the function, okay? Because here we're just using Euler's number. Okay, good. All right, this one's going to take a little bit more time. Number 5. We want to assign a variable year born to 1984, assign a variable year current to 2004, assign a variable age and compute it. Return true or false if the person is eligible to vote in the U.S. If the age is greater than or equal to 18. So once you have that, you can post that in the text chat, and I will go over. So we're on question 5 right now. So I saw Mike. I'm just looking at yours. I think you just did greater than. I think you want to say greater than or equal to, right? Oh, John, too. It's not just greater than 18. We want to include 18. All right, so we want to use greater than or equal to. So this is just about reading the question a little bit better, right? So we have our variable 1984 called year born, year current. All right, we're doing simple subtraction and assigning the result of that simple subtraction to a variable called age. And then we're going to see, is age greater than or equal to 18? True. Does it change our result? No, when I say age greater than 18, because the age is 30. But what if the age was 18? Then what are we going to get? Well, here we'd still get true. But if I only had age is greater than 18, I would get false. Okay? Okay. Let's move on to question 6. So we're looking at a simple problem that helps us calculate the radius. And I'm giving you a simple formula for the area of a circle, pi times radius squared, and I'm giving you area. Looks like most people are getting 5.64. Good. Good. Thank you all for your participation. This is great. It's reinforcing and helps me know that you're working. And if you have questions, feel free to ask them. I know things are going quickly. I'm getting some private questions here, just trying to get to that. Some people sent me their answers privately. That's fine. When you send a text chat, there's a drop down underneath the text chat that says who you want to send it to. So if there was something that you said, oh, Kristen's going too fast, or if you have another question, feel free to do that. Okay. And I'm getting that a little bit. Okay. So let's slow down on question 7. So this is a good one for the class to work on. I just want to explain it. So You went to lunch with your friend, and your bill was $45.90. I would like you to compute the subtotal by adding the New York City tax to the pre-tax bill, and then compute a 15% tip and a 20% tip. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on this, so don't get nervous if it's silent, okay? Some people are saying slow down a little bit, and I agree. I just want to make sure that it's a good pace for everyone. I see some people have shared their work. Thank you. It takes me also a little time to review this too, so I'm glad we're slowing down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to run through it. So we have our bill. I'm going to clear my console actually real quick, so everything I type is at the top of the screen. So I have my bill, $45.90. I have my tax rate. Okay, I'm going to use that as a variable. So you might have just hard-coded that value, but I'm going to create a variable for tax rate. It'll just be easier for me to use instead of typing in. And what happens when the tax rate changes, right? So then I'm going to calculate the subtotal of the bill times 1 plus the tax rate divided by 100. Okay. And just to show you what that subtotal is, I can print that out. And then I'm going to round that subtotal. So I don't know if anybody used the round function. I don't see, and a lot of them, especially the people who did it fast, amazing. But if you can do it that fast, then take the extra time to make your data look good, right? So use the round function and then pass in subtotal and say I want 2 decimal places, okay? And then I'm going to create a variable for tip 15%, okay? And again, I can print that out. And I'm using the round function, 5747. This is the answer you should have gotten. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to compute the 20% tip. I'm getting 59.97. Okay. So hopefully that's clear. Again, it's already on NYU classes. You have all the answers in the code, so you can go through this exercise again and check your work. Okay. Please let me know if there are any questions on this. This is like super basic, but really important. I want you to feel comfortable. And once you get to lesson 3, if you're not there yet, you start working in the console window where you can plan out your code in advance. I think you'll really enjoy that. So you're still working on this, fine, but I'd like to start the second session materials. So if you open up that PDF file, session 2.1, and there's a few things that I want to explain, and it's going to be really important because like most of you haven't started lesson 3. And R is an amazing programming environment. And specifically, R Studio gives us this kind of graphical user interface that we can work in the console. We can write scripts. We can see our variables here. We can even read help files all in one screen and one interface. But R Studio has made a big change for how when you import data using this import data set, it imports it into a data type called a tibble. And that data type is relatively new, and there's not so much documentation on it, and it is not as practical for us in learning R. So we have to convert that data type to what's called a data frame. And a data frame you can kind of think of as like your Excel data set, okay? A tibble is a different type of data structure, and when we try to do certain types of computations on that data structure, all those functions we wanted to use don't accept the type tibble. They accept the data frame. So when we want to do things like that are listed in session 2, we need to just do a few extra steps. And this is all clearly documented in lesson 3, but I'm just trying to give you the overall. Okay, so a few things here. The first question says, getting to know the data. So you're going to import some data named winterolympics.csv. You're going to view that data, and you're going to see how many variables are in that data frame, look at the names of the variables, and look at how many countries or rows are in that data frame. So I think it would be best if we did this together, so everybody felt kind of comfortable importing data. So first things first, find that file, winterolympics.csv. And once you find that, what I like you to do is, for purposes of this session, either put it in a directory that you know where it lives, so if it's on your desktop or something, or make sure it's somewhere where you know it is. And then the next piece is that I would like you to go to session, set working directory, and then choose the directory in which that data lives. So I'm choosing this directory. You choose whatever one it is, okay? So, and since I've used the interface here where I just say session, set working directory, choose directory. That's what I've done so far. R Studio actually executes the command that's highlighted in the console here, the setwd command. Once you've done that, then what I'd like you to do is type in get wd. Oops. Parentheses. And this will give you the full path of where your working directory is. It's going to be convenient as you move on that you know what your working directory is. So get working directory. And you can set it and you can get it. You can do it manually as well, or you can use the interface of RStudio. Next, I would like you to import your data. That Winter Olympic _CSV. So we're going to say import data set here. It's in this window here where my mouse is pointing. And you can't see that, I'm realizing. So I'm going to move my screen. And you see in this upper right-hand corner, my mouse says import data set. Go ahead and click on that. And then say from CSV. Now, you get this screen that's shown here. That's going to say, it's going to allow you to browse to find that file. Go ahead and browse. It's going to take you and find that working directory and that file. And then say open. Now, many of you may have double-clicked on the CSV file and opened it in Excel. It's going to give you problems. You just want to work with the CSV file and import it like I'm showing you. Some people's RStudio might be installing packages. That's like, it's going to take a while. It's okay. I'm going to give you an alternative way that you can do this, but this is, and then you can decide what you want to call this data. Right now, the default name is Winter _Olympic. I'm highlighting it here where it says import options. And lots of import options here. So I'm just going to call it Winter because Winter Olympic is a lot to type. And then it says first row as names. That's checked. That's good. You can import text. If Brad, if you have an older version of RStudio, use text, okay? If CSV isn't there. Got it. Good. I prefer the older version of RStudio, but the newer version has a very new way of dealing with importing data, which is not my favorite because it requires an extra step for you guys learning this, which I don't like. So we name it Winter, let's say, and the first row as names basically means the first row of data is going to be our column names. And in our data preview here, that makes a lot of sense. We see rank, NOC, which means name of country. We see gold, silver, bronze, total, okay? That all looks like it makes sense. And then we can decide if it's a comma delimited file. Well, CSVs mostly are, so we can choose that. And we'll just keep the rest of the default options. And then it gives you a code preview. So we're using a library called readr, and we're using a read _CSV function. And we're assigning the output of that, to a variable called Winter. And then we're using a function called view to see the data. Some people may be seeing a lot of different characters. Sometimes if you've opened your file in advance in Excel and then saved it, you're going to have a problem. Okay, and this is normal working with data. So and then I'm going to say import. Okay, so I have imported my data. And if you're having problems, like just hold on. I just want to go through this whole exercise and then we'll get back. Okay, so I'm able to see this. It says view Winter. This view function shows me the data up here. And it gives me some really interesting things. I see 1 out of 6 out of 26 entries. So I know I have 26 observations. And I can easily count how many variables I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? 7 variables. Some people are still having some problems importing. So there's another way that you can import, which, let me just bring up that really quick. You can use something like, I'm going to type it in here at the bottom. You can use read.csv. Okay, pass in the name of your CSV file as long as you set your working directory in advance. Say that it's comma separated and that you want the header. You want the column names to be present. This function is much preferred over the way I just showed you. However, sometimes we like to use this graphical interface to see our data. So if you're more inclined to doing that, which, I kind of like, where we use the import dataset button here, then we just have to do a few more steps. Okay. So we've looked at our winter data, we viewed it, right? So that's what, so let me go up to, oops, we just say view winter. Okay, so it appears here, great. And then I want you to type in something called class winter. See how it says table data frame this? This is a tibble. If I said class data, you saw I imported data, it's a data.frame. That's the data type that you want to make sure anything that you import is, okay? So what we need to do is that we need to do something like this. We need to take our tibble, winter, and then we need to say data.frame pass in winter. What we're doing is we're converting winter to be a data frame. And then I could say class winter, and I have a data frame. And John, you're right, exactly. So at this point, you should have your data imported, and I'm going to help troubleshoot. But what I just wanted to stress that even though we have the button import data set, it's not going to import it the way we really want to be able to manipulate it using the various functions that we use to manipulate data. So tibble is a new data structure, and the RStudio folks have invented it and are using it. But unfortunately, it's only in version 1.0. And so it's not very usable right now. Hey, Zeus, no problem. Thank you for your... So next, before we go, because our session's almost over, just want to do a few more things just to kind of show you. And then I want you to work on this data on your own. So one question is, how many variables are in the data frame? So we can use the length function to see how many columns there are. And if we wanted to know the names of the variables, we can use the names function, and it will give us every single column name. And if we wanted to know how many countries or rows there are in the data frame, I can use this dim function. And I can see that there's 26 observations of 7 variables. And then the rest of the questions are pretty, straightforward. I have a few things that are a little tricky there on purpose. But you can work through these, just working with the data, and not just data that you create, like using the C function, but more of working with a data set that you've imported. And once you get over the hurdle of understanding how to import the data set, then all of this will become second nature, but it just takes some practice. Keith, I'm glad you like the str function. One of my favorites. So if I use something like this gives me an str, so tells me a lot of things about my data. It'll tell me every variable, the variable data type, and the possible values for each variable, which is very cool. Love summary too. Summary gives me my summary statistics, which is very cool for each variable. But we can't get to this part until you have your data and you feel comfortable importing your data. So I'm going to pause here, and we're going to work on all these other ways that we can manipulate and interrogate our data. Basically, we're asking questions of our data by using, str or summary, right? We're getting some insights. So I'm going to pause here and just see if anybody has any questions. And I'm going to unmute everybody's microphone. and just take a look at the text chat, or feel free just to speak out. Okay, so it looks like, Leandro, I see what you're saying. It looks like when you want to import your data, I'm going to go up here. I'm highlighting something in my code window. You want to use your comma separated and header equals true. So you might have skipped that. All right, I'm going to move on. All right, glimpse is nice if you're working with a Tibble. Great, John. So if you open it in Excel and you get those extra characters, just download the file again, just for simplicity's sake right now. And don't open it in Excel. Somebody asked what STR stands for. All right, so what happens when we don't know something? Like, what does STR stand for? So I just wrote in the console, $STR. And then it shows me that that is a function from the utilities package. And it tells me it displays the internal structure of an R object. Okay, and you can see kind of what it will explain what it does. So there we are. So Arun, why don't you type in the code exactly what you are trying to do? That gives you, you're just saying class data, but if you have a few lines to give me context, that would be great. Data is not this, well, the way I'm using data here is not as a function. So when I say summary data, data is actually data that I've imported. And so you'll see in my environment here, I have something called data. Okay, right here. That's my data. I also have something called winter. So I can use winter. It's the same data. I've named it, well, I did two examples. First I named my data winter, and then I named my data. And sometimes our data, it might just be, like a Unicode issue or something. If you're having an issue and you have these strange characters, then open your file in Excel and export it as a .csv and name it some other name and see if that helps with the extra characters. Sometimes it's how we download it. All right, I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. These are great questions. And this is all common. Every session, I get very similar questions. Good. So the key is you're going to be working with data throughout this program. So you're going to face these challenges every time. And then look at Paolo. She opened it as a text file and replaced all those characters, and then it worked for her. So that was the data cleaning she needed to do. So Keith says, do we have to worry about strings as factors at this point? Not at this point, but we will talk about that for sure. Jesus is saying, hey, I have to download some R packages. I know, it depends what version of RStudio you're using. So I recommended to use this version, to use the latest version. So we're all in the same version. However, things may look different. If you're using an older version, you're not going to have as many problems with importing data, but they just changed it in this newer version. And Jesus, downloading packages right now kind of in real time while we're working is going to be, you're probably going to have to wait. And I find it can take a while. So, all right, well, it's about that time. It's 8:11 and there's still a good group here. Round of applause. This is great. I will stay on if there are any other questions. I see Lynn asked a question, what's the deadline to submit this exercise? These ones that we're working on here are just for you. This is just practice, okay? You don't have to submit these at all. What you do need to submit is less sessions 1 through 6 that are posted on NYU classes, okay? That are the required assignments. But you do not have to submit anything that we work on in any live session. I know you're here from your participation, your attendance, and that you're working hard. But these are really to give you extra practice. I always get, questions. Are there required assignments due before lecture? Well, there are 6 assignments. Tim, are you aware of those? So I'm just bringing up my NYU classes. Oh, you're aware of those. Okay. So if I'm in NYU classes, it's going to ask me to log in. I'm just taking you to my page. Go to lessons. And lectures 1 through 6. At the end of every lecture, as most of you know, there's submit session 1 exercise here. Okay. And the questions are actually in the PDF file. Good. So Tim, besides those 6, there's nothing else due. You need to work on the statistics portion of the course, which is what Professor Lochner is doing. So these 1 through 6. But I don't believe he has you submitting anything. He just wants you to do it, but I don't think you have to submit anything. Good. So why don't I stop the recording and say formally thank you to everyone for your participation. Again, this is one of my favorite classes to teach, and I hope this format is helpful to you to practice. And if I was going a little too fast, and then some of you told me, so I appreciate that. And if I'm going a little too slow for others, tell me. And I want to make sure that these sessions are for you. I know this stuff, and I want to make sure that you get the practice.